Hi friends, my name is Wendy. I am so excited to share with you today a really amazing project. This is a DIY project. You're going to need a Sharpie marker. You're going to need a T-square ruler. I prefer the ones from my Sweet Petunia because they are really nice and flat, so you get a straight line every time. A lot of other T-square rulers have a weird lip that can kind of make the lines weird. Here I've got Misty sticky mats. So you need at least the original size mat or the Memory Misty mats. I prefer to use for this project, I prefer to use the one that has the big square grid. These are mini Misty mats. Now you can use these for a couple of the templates we're going to make today, and you can use them for a few other things that I might share in another video, but we don't end up using these today. So we're going to focus on using the original size, and then here we've got the Memory Misty. The Memory Misty is for basically scrapbooking or stamping on a really large piece of cardstock. It is 12 by 12. So there are sticky mats that go inside of the Memory Misty. So these are a fantastic size, and I'm going to show you why your best bet is to just get the memory size mats as we go. Okay, here I have templates that I have printed off my computer, and I do have a link for these below. I attempted to contact the person who originally created these. It is not me. And unfortunately, I was unable to get a hold of her. And her last blog post was from 2022. So I'm not even sure that she is creating anymore. But what we're going to do is we are going to make these templates, and they are going to go inside of our Misty on the sticky mat. And then we can get perfect stamping on circles and other shapes. We'll talk about that in a minute. So when you have a brand new sticky mat, it has a cover on the front of it. It's kind of like a plasticky acetate piece to cover up the sticky area. You're going to leave that on and flip your mat upside down so that your mat is, the back of your mat is where you're doing your tracing. I then am lining up the edge of my sticky mat with one of the edges of this shape. I'm going to then use some removable adhesive to put this in place, just that low tack sticky tape. And I'm going to hold this down in place on just a piece of, what I'm using today is just a piece of copy paper. And that's on where I printed the image from. We're really not going to use the printed image except to do what we're doing right now, is the tracing. You're going to then get your T-square ruler out, and you are literally just going to simply copy or trace over all of these lines. And when I say all of the lines, I mean all of the lines, my friends. So let's talk about a couple of things so that you get your absolute best results. I even have a little cheat sheet here right next to me so that I can read these off to you. One is you want to use a thick permanent marker like I'm using here. Now this is technically called a fine point Sharpie, but I just want to make note it's a nice bullet point, and it's not a, and here I'm just setting that up so that with my heat tool so it doesn't smear. You don't even have to use a heat tool. You can do this without a heat tool. It's just if you hit it with a heat tool, it tends to kind of dry the lines a little bit quicker, and then they won't smear. So as I was saying, you want a little bit thicker Sharpie. The other thing I have found, it's kind of sped up here so you maybe aren't seeing it. I'm wiping off my ruler with a microfiber cloth just to make sure I don't end up with any kind of like bleeding over or areas that are going to smear on the back of this sticky mat. I'm then taking some circle dies that I have from Honeybee Stamps. You can use any circle dies you have. And I'm lining them up with the circles that I see on the template. Unfortunately, I didn't have a large enough circle to do the outer circle, so I just didn't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Here, I'm just going through and adding them as best I can, lining them up with the lines underneath, and then tracing on the inside or the outside of the die. This is just a way for me to get a really nice, smooth edge, rather than me trying to trace a circle freehand. I'm not very good at that. So the other thing I want to make note of is you might notice that the sticky mat we're using right here in this video is using the larger square grid. I personally think this is the least distracting and works the best for these projects, but you can use any of the mats that you want to use. And then, yes, I am going through and I'm making a little line where all the lines are on the template underneath. I'm just tracing right over them. These are 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch lines. I've just found that they do help when you're trying to line something up. They definitely help. Okay, now my next tip for you is that you kind of want to try to make it so that when you are drawing your lines, they are not over the top of the white line underneath the sticky mat. So what I mean by that is the grid on the sticky mat is printed on the back of the sticky mat. So if you draw a perfectly straight line right over the top of one of those grid lines, you won't really be able to see the line you drew. Does that make sense? So this is what it ends up looking like when I'm all finished. And then we just have to cut it out. So I'm going to use a pair of really handy scissors. These scissors don't exist anymore. These are old pair of scissors I have, but I linked to a pair down below. If you don't have a nice heavy duty pair of scissors, there's some at Spellbinders. So you definitely want to use some heavy duty scissors that can cut through thick plastic. All right, now I'm going to show you what these grids are for, what these templates are for, and why we are making them. After you've made all of them, I want you to pick out a stamp, a sentiment that you would like to stamp all the way around a circle die cut. So here's my circle die cut. I'm laying it down in the center of my template here, and I'm going to place the sentiment and see if it will fit in between those two lines on the template. Do you see those two lines on each side of the sentiment? You can see here it doesn't fit. What that is going to tell you is that this sentiment will not be able to be stamped evenly all the way around this template. So I'm going to put my sentiment back and I'm going to change out my template. And I'm showing you several of them here so that you can see what we're doing. Hopefully this is going to make total sense to you. So we're going to bring in the square template, center our circle again, and we're going to bring back that same sentiment and we're going to put it in between the lines that you see going up on the edges of this template, right? You see those that are making an X? Now you can see here it fits within, but there's a gap on each side. So I could use this sentiment, but it's only going to stamp it 4 times in between those, and it's just not going to look very continuous. So here I'm going to grab another template shape and I'm going to try it out with this one. First, I'm going to lay this down and see, oh look, it fits beautifully within those 2 lines. So now I know that if I stamp this circular all the way around, it's going to stamp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I'm then going to leave that sentiment where I want it and adhere it to my MISTI, and then I can pull away my acetate sheet that's covering up the sticky mat. I'm going to go ahead and add my magnet, and then I'm going to pop my die cut in place. You guys are going to love how this works. It's so cool. So we're popping this in place, and then we have one more thing we need to do before we move to the next step. I'm making sure that the bottom of the template is pushed down to the bottom of my MISTI, and then I'm going to adhere this down to my sticky mat. Isn't that beautiful? Perfect. Then I can just double check, yep, it's gonna work, but we don't want that sentiment to be stamped straight. We want it to be curved. So you just take off your little template and you put it under the MISTI door so that you can see everything through. You want to make sure the bottom of the template is lined up with the bottom of the Misty grid mat or grid that's on the door. So I'm lining them all up. And then I'm going to take that sentiment and I'm going to manipulate it so that it's kind of going circular instead of like an arch. It's going to have an arch instead of going straight, because we obviously wouldn't want this to stamp absolutely straight, right? Because then it's not going to look how we want it to look. So now I've moved it to how I want it, and I'm going to take my template and put it right back in, make sure everything is exactly where it should be, and then I'm going to start my stamping. I'm going to hit this with my anti-static powder tool and then grab some white ink. I'm using Honeybee white pigment ink, and I'm going to ink this up and stamp it. Now here is the fun part. You guys are going to love this. So we're going to stamp it, and then we are just going to move our magnet, and we are going to turn our template, put our magnet back in place, and stamp again. And boy, howdy, is this one of the coolest tricks I have ever seen. So huge hats off to Maureen Wong for sharing how to do this, and another lovely woman by the name of Cyndie. I don't know her last name. She's the one that created the printables. There is a link for the printables below. Again, if you can tell me how to get in touch with either one of them, I really would love to give them full credit for this. This is such a fantastic idea, and I will be using these mats over and over and over. Now, when Maureen made hers, she didn't have sticky mats. So hers were just templates that she photocopied and printed out. But having the sticky mat in place for this makes it so much easier. So fun. So then when that's done, I just covered this with white embossing powder and heat set it. Okay, so here's my finished piece that will actually end up making a whole card. I'll show you at the end, and I'm going to go ahead and continue using that Honeybee stamp set to finish it. But I wanted to show you one more sample of, and remember, you always want to put your little plastic piece back over your sticky mat. So I wanted to show you one more sample of how to do this, and I wanted to also show you all 4 templates together, and I wanted to show you that all 4 templates can be cut from one 12 by 12 memory sticky mat. So here's my big 12 by 12 memory sticky mat, and I'm going to place all of these on top. And I just wanted to show you that if you wanted to, you could use one mat and get all of these. Now, this would be a really fun project to do with some of your favorite stamping friends. Have, a project to do over the holidays together. The other thing I thought would be fun is to make some of these templates for some of your stamping friends, and then you could give it to them as a gift. So if you wanted, for a birthday, Christmas gift, whatever, or just an in general crafty gift, this would make such a fun gift, and you would be able to teach them how to make it. You could always refer them to this video so that they know how to use it, is what I should have said. So here I have a little scallop circle that I want to use for another project. I need to make a thank you card for one of my daughter's teachers, and so I decided I wanted to have "You're an A+ stamped all around the edges of this scallop circle, and I'm going to put teacher in the middle. So here I'm going to take it and hold it there up against my grid so that I can see how many times I would be able to stamp this. So obviously, if I were to stamp it with this square, I would only be stamping it 4 times. If I were trying to stamp it with this one, it wouldn't work because you can see the sentiment is larger where the scallop, sorry about that. You can see that the sentiment is larger where the scallop circle hits, see? So I wouldn't be able to use this because it's going to go over and stamp over each other. So if I put it on a larger circle, I could do it, but not on this size circle that I want to use. Does that make sense? I hope this is all making sense. Your sentiment has to fit in between the lines, and that's how many times you'll be able to stamp it on whatever size circle you're using. So let's say I was using a really giant big circle and I wanted my little sentiment here to be stamped like not at the edge but closer in. I could use it, and it's going to stamp that many times, however many times of which template you're using. So here's the one that works. I gave my little thumbs up there, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my Misty and show you how this works. So we have our hexagon here that we're going to pop in place. It's going to give us 6 stamped images around this circle. Now the sky is the limit with what you can do with these templates, and there will definitely be more videos from me sharing more ideas with you, but this is your kind of basic video to get you started on how to make these templates and how to use them. So I'm getting it all set up here where I want it. I'm going to close my Misty door and pick it up, and then I'm going to, apparently I'm going to clean up and tidy up, and then I'm going to remove that clear plastic cover. The clear plastic cover just keeps these neat and tidy. You don't really have to leave them on if you don't want to, but yeah, it keeps things kind of organized. Okay, so then we're going to pop down that scallop circle, and then I am going to shut the Misty door, and I am going to make sure that my sentiment is still in the right place, and it is. And then remember, we're going to remove it, and we're going to pop it under the door on the opposite side, lining up the bottom of the template with the grid. And then we're going to manipulate our stamp to have a curve so that it's making sense to stamp circular around this scallop circle. I'm going to pop this back in place. And then we're going to do our stamping, and you're going to see the magic that happens. I'm going to use Altenews Obsidian Pigment ink here in black, and we're going to just get to stamping all the way around this circle. Look at how perfect that stamps. Now watch, we're just going to turn it, make sure it's pushed up against the side and the bottom of the Misty, and then we're going to ink it up and stamp it again. And you're like, is it really going to work? It really works, you guys. It really works. I'm telling you, it's so cool. So after I get all of this stamped, the next steps is just to make my cards. I made 2 really cool cards that are totally opposite of each other, have nothing to do, one has nothing to do with the other, but they were both cards that I felt inspired to make. And one of them, like I said, was a necessity for one of my daughter's teachers. I'm going to pop a gift card in the card, and it's just a thank you for some hard work that the teacher has done recently. So now that we've gotten this completely stamped all the way around almost, I have stamped this sentiment 6 times perfectly in a circle. I can remove this from my Misty, and the way I like to remove whatever is stuck down to the sticky mat is by bending the sticky mat and popping off the cardstock. That way it doesn't bend or scrunch up my cardstock. So here's a few other ones I made. I did one circular and one square, you can see, and where it says pie, I'm gonna actually color a little piece of pie and pop it up there to just be a cute little tag for a friend. And then there's 2 of my finished cards. Look at this. Aren't these cool? So you don't have to have anything fancy. You can make your own template to stamp all the way around in the circle to create some really beautiful handmade cards. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a good day, friend. Bye-bye.